feel really good about being loved for all of who I am,
Ooh,
even some of the stuff that I'm not as proud to share with the rest of the world, but to have a sounding board with someone who's really safe, who's going to help me reframe some things, who's going to help me shift and see things in a little bit healthier light. And yes, I get it. You're absolutely right. We do that for each other. We're each other's executive coach. And I love that because it's not just the professional affinity, it's also wanting to live your best life, wanting to be an excellent leader, wanting to communicate with love and integrity with everyone, because that's what good leadership is too, is what good teaching is. Love is the essence of who we are at our best. So to be able to say that to my partner and have him help me choose the love frame, and I do that with him too, that's a big part of what I intended, that I'm happy to say is even better.
well, this is a delightful conversation. So, Dawn Eidelman is a brilliant innovator in executive leadership and education. She is the executive director of ACEP, the Association of Energy Psychology. And she brings a vast background in education and consciousness and awakening, as well as really supporting online learning. So, on a professional level, kudos and so much admiration for her. What I love about her true love story is she met a man in her field, actually, someone she had run across through reputation and a couple incidences in their profession before the timing was aligned, before they were both free and single and came together through a mutual friend and started a love affair. And it is that. And you will learn so much more about how she got ready, how she knew she was ready, and how she really set the bar high for what she was looking for and encourages anyone in that situation to do the same. Eric, her now husband, had the same high standards. And over time, they found each other and they're doing really well, which you will soon find out. So enjoy our conversation. I hope you gain more insights and encouragement and inspiration. Thank you for saying yes, Dawn.
My pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
for having me, Joy.
yeah. And it's fun how this came about because we don't know each other that well. But what I do know about you is you recently fell in love and in your 50s and have a beautiful relationship. So that's always inspiring. What makes your relationship so beautiful?
I think because it is so intentional. We were really, really ready for each other. And then we said a big yes, and we committed to live the yes life together. So, what's sort of fun is that we knew each other by reputation professionally, and we were introduced by a fellow friend and colleague who said, of all the people that I've known working in K-12 education space, I've never encountered any two people who had the same skill set, where they had the double bottom line of financial performance and student achievement. So at the very least, you have a lot in common. And by the way, you're both single. So, you should know each other. It turned out that he had a different message to Eric, which was a little stronger on the single side, because I was really single at the time. And we had a couple of really nice Zoom meetings that, because I was newly single after a 34-year relationship, I didn't know how to do this except to kind of handle it the way I did business meetings. So, we really looked at the affinities over Zoom with our work, thought about how we might bump into each other at a conference or work together on an interactive learning management system, some lame stuff. But I had just moved to California. He was in DC, and I had just gotten a divorce, an amicable one, but after a lot of years, and I just wasn't quite ready and didn't really know how to have those kinds of conversations. So it just sort of kind of went on hold the way professional acquaintances do. And then about a year later, I was starting to feel ready to date. I will tell on myself, I kind of approached it a little bit like a business person again, thinking I should think about this the way I would do a strategic plan. So, what's the best way to meet someone really great, really aligned, maybe somebody from my past who I already know, um, or someone who's been introduced by someone that we both know and trust. Eric, I should get back in touch with him, just see how he's doing. And so I reached out. Oh, this is really important. In the interim time of that year, the friend who introduced us came to LA with his wife, took me out to dinner in Redondo Beach. I told him the story of what had happened with the business. My former husband and I were business partners. After 18 years, that had a really tough ending. And I just told him the story of what had happened. And he said, Dawn, if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. And I said, I appreciate that, Joseph. I am actually interviewing for a really interesting executive job and might need a letter of reference done. And you could introduce me to a really great guy. I think I'm ready to start dating. And he said, well, I already have. And I said, he is a great guy. You're right. But he's in DC. I'm in California. And he just said, Dawn, you're a world traveler. You can make that work. And I just had a paradigm shift. And then a waitress took our picture because Joseph and Judy always post pictures wherever they travel. Eric liked it on Facebook. Eric and I became Facebook friends. My birthday was shortly thereafter. He wished me a happy birthday on Facebook. His birthday is the week later. I wished him a happy birthday. And then I did what people often do. I kind of looked at all of his Facebook posts and pictures, and a lot of them were about his daughter. And, he's a really great writer. I knew a lot about him professionally by reputation. And I reached out to him about a year after we had initially been introduced and said, hey, I'm in San Francisco now, have this really great new job. Would you be interested to talk about an interactive LMS? so, and so he said, sure, when do you want to talk? And so that next Zoom, about 5 minutes into the conversation, it shifted, we started talking business very quickly. He went to, is your divorce final? I said, well, it was actually final when I met you, but the difference is I'm really kind of feeling ready now to start dating. And we just took it from there and have at the very least talked every day since then. This was in 2019, and I like to say that Eric and I invented Zoom Bada Boom because, during the pandemic, it became a real thing, people meeting and dating over Zoom. But I love that we had months together of talking every day and telling our stories and getting to know each other before we actually met up in the 3D world because we were already really deep friends and there was such a high level of trust, and it was it was a really different kind of courtship.
I'm so glad you bring this up because I am an advocate of long distance dating when it happens. Not that it's the right way or the only way, but one of the greatest benefits, and this happened for Gavin and I too, we got to know each other so well as friends and on energy level. We could intuit and vibrationally feel each other, and we talked about so many things. And so there was an investment of time before there was an actual coming together physical. I do want to ask you something and then hear more of your story. But you weren't ready when you first met him, and then you were ready. So for you, how did you know you were ready? What was different? What made you ready for a relationship? You were shortly after a divorce. So,
A lot of self-care, and with the divorce, it was amicable. I'm very good friends with my first husband and father of my three grandchildren. Part of it was, to be honest, my need to rebuild on my own and take radical responsibility for my own fate. Instead of being angry at the decisions that other people had made that had affected me terribly, I just thought, I don't want to go through life angry and feeling resentful. I'm going to be captain of my own destiny, and I can be friends. There's a different level of compatibility required for a real marriage versus a really quality friendship. And I choose real, and I choose responsibility, and learning how to rebuild in alignment with the things that are the most important to me right now. I knew that I wanted to move into working in the consciousness space, bring my skill set in online learning and program development and scaling programs to this space, and work with people that energetically were reflective of who I was becoming and who I was meant to be all along. So I think step one was manifesting the professional path and making that real first. And even before that, going where the love is. I went to my hometown. I spent time with my aunts and my cousins and a lot of female energy. And, I love, love, love my sons and am a big fan. Men are great. I just needed a lot of kind of radical feminine nurturance. And I got it in spades. And that was very healing and restorative. And I think part of the readiness too, it really was manifesting the work life, manifesting the partnership to accompany me on that work life, in a home together. So it was a progression that, as you know, you really build momentum as the one thing starts to come together, because everything lights up when you're living in the flow and in alignment with who you really are.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely talk a lot about it in the Awakening Heart program. It just continues to come up as an exploration that there's like a knowing. That's how it was for me. I was actually surprised I was ready when I realized I was ready. It kind of snuck up on me. But I, like you, having ended once a very significant relationship, I wanted to get my work reestablished. That was important to me, my own foundation on a career level. But like you, also a nourishment of my feminine energy and a refamiliar ization of who am I now and how do I nurture me so that then whoever came into my life I could be more generous, more authentic, and more ready to have a more mature relationship. You also mentioned something about having different compatibility and alignment with Eric. So once you guys shifted from your professional talk, which I think that is so sweet, you led with that, but he initiated a little more of the personal. So once that shifted and you started having those Zoom calls and getting to know each other, how were you assessing compatibility with each other?
It was very intuitive, very much in flow. When we tell our story to friends and family, especially since things did move pretty quickly once we found each other. One of the refrains was, when you know, you know. Another refrain was, we're committed to the yes life. Eric had been single for 12 years, and his buddies gave him a bad time about being too picky. But he said, I'd rather be on my own than be in a relationship that's not a really great fit or full alignment. I can have friends. I don't need to live with someone if it's not really right. And so his story was a little bit the opposite of mine. I was sort of just fresh, giving this a go. And he really, really knew what he was looking for. And lucky me.
It was you. It was you.
It just was really sweet. We watched for New Year's Eve earlier in the evening. We watched When Harry Met Sally, and there's the scene of their best friends who end up together saying to each other, "Promise me I'll never have to be out there again. I promise you." So he sometimes teases me about, how he had to have the long slog and I got off easy. But we were really lucky to recognize each other very, very quickly.
You didn't necessarily recognize him because you weren't ready. And I find that really intriguing too. And it might touch base for people. There might be someone, for anyone listening who's ready, there might be someone you've met in the past. And Dawn, you even were thinking about that when you were ready to
Yep.
re-engage. You were like, okay, mutual friends, who have I known in the past? How might you attract this partner based on relationships? But he didn't quite come to your mind right away.
Not immediately. I kind of needed that encounter with Joseph to remind me I have introduced you to a great guy because he was on the other side of the country. But one of our early, like maybe even the first week, we were sending a lot of texts. He's a wonderful poetic literary writer. And he said, I feel like I've discovered a star in a distant galaxy and I have to go there and explore firsthand. And I just thought, that is really quite lovely.
Oh,
To the point though, when we started talking every day on Zoom, I did a search in my emails to find a prior email to see something that we had talked about or agreed to. And to my surprise, I found an exchange from 4 years earlier. I had met him in a professional capacity, but on the phone back before we were Zooming and Skyping. And it's a funny story because, we were, as my business was experiencing a hostile takeover, the business of 18 years, we went to DC, met with some investors. They loved the curriculum that I had created over 18 years that had garnered a lot of awards. We were trying to separate that off from the deal and find a buyer just for the curriculum. So they suggested that I call Calvert. Calvert is a company I knew very well because I grew up overseas. I started kindergarten through third grade in West Africa, and it was a French speaking country. So I learned French, in the first couple of years, the easy way. Third grade, we used Calvert with the 12 American kids in our city. And it was books in a box. It was kind of like distance homeschooling for a good 100 years before it became a real thing here. And so I knew Calvert. I was excited to talk to the CEO of Calvert. Paragon, the curriculum I'd created, was global in scope. It was the history of great ideas and great people in world culture about human potential through the ages. And Calvert actually did have an impact on my thinking about curriculum, making it hands-on, making it global, um, creating a lot of collaboration and teamwork between kids. So I was super excited about this call. Well, the first time he missed the call. So there's this email about, oh, Dawn, I'm
this
so
is
sorry.
Eric. This is Eric you're calling.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Can we reschedule? I didn't have it on my calendar. I reschedule. And then we had this perfunctory business call for maybe 30 minutes where, you know, I'm talking about the curriculum, how I developed it with my brilliant and amazing team. And he's telling me how he developed the curriculum for Calvert as an open source high school program. Very interesting. But it was, he was clearly being pitched by a lot of people and was trying to get rid of me. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'd be so much better at his job than he is. So it is really funny because that initial meeting was eminently forgettable.
And this speaks to timing.
Absolutely.
And that your souls, if you will, each dropped into earth and chose similar paths, which has now become such a nice, I'm guessing, resting place for both of you, intellectually stimulating and then also so relatable and supportive.
Mm-hmm.
But the timing, that was not the timing. And when it was, it was. You were ready. You guys begun the conversations. Let's get back to that part of the story because I'm really curious. How long before you saw each other in person?
I think the fastest we could make it happen with our respective schedules and weddings and other commitments was probably about 6 weeks. And we were talking at least an hour a day from then until we met up. And we chose a place that I want to say neither of us had been to. I had been there, but not really in a touristy kind of way. Just I think I came on a business trip in and out. We went to Savannah. We had talked about Vegas, but early on, I said, I'm not sure that Vegas is the right vibe because I think there might be something really, really special here. And I don't know that Vegas is where we want to have our first meeting. We can go there some other time. Let's think of a place where we can really just be with each other. And so Savannah was the choice. It was magical and it was everything that we hoped it would be. And we had to get decisive really quickly.
Yeah, because the chemistry was there clearly. I love, and I want to point out that you spoke up for what you wanted and that you felt that you had something so special that it deserved that. And so I'm curious about this initial dating, like the first few calls. What was it that you had done in the past in your marriage, for example, that you didn't want to do this time in your relationship with Eric? Or what were some of the patterns that you were ready to change with him? Were you conscious of those and what might they have been?
Definitely. I think the big part, and we've talked a little bit about it, was, in alignment with who I am now. At 58, I was not the same person that I was at 22. My kids were grown. I have a really great relationship with all of them. And this was a time where I could really focus on what do I want to create next? And one of the things I wanted to be able to have soulful conversations. I wanted to be able to, I'm a big movie fan, and I love kind of a spiritual reading of film narratives, the way I do with as a comparative literature professor, my focus was on narratives of awakening. So I love story. I love what it tells us about the human experience. And he's a big movie buff. Um, I also wanted somebody intellectual, but also heart-centered. Um, his love for his daughter was very attractive, and she is a doll. She turns 20 in another week. So I have three sons, a girl and know her from 14, which is really nice. Um, so much of it was just, I want to be able to talk about what's really on my mind anytime, not feel like I have to walk on eggshells, edit myself. Um, and feel really good about being loved for all of who I am, even
Ooh,
some of the, Even some of the stuff that I'm not as proud to share with the rest of the world, but to have a sounding board with someone who's really safe, who's going to help me reframe some things, who's going to help me shift and see things in a little bit healthier light. And yes, I get it. You're absolutely right. We do that for each other. We're each other's executive coach. And I love that because it's not just the professional affinity, it's also wanting to live your best life, wanting to be an excellent leader, wanting to communicate with love and integrity with everyone, because that's what good leadership is too. It's what good teaching is. Love is the essence of who we are at our best. So to be able to say that to my partner and have him help me choose the love frame, and I do that with him too, that's a big part of what I intended, that I'm happy to say is even better than what I was
Yeah.
before.
I'm hearing two core themes there. One is to be truthful from the get-go. You said, I want to be with someone where I'm not walking on eggshells. And then I also want to be with someone who can be a sounding board, who can be a safe space to be vulnerable, to not be your best image of self. And so you wanted that, but you had to test it, right? You wanted it, you thought it could be him. That also takes an internal commitment to be authentic and transparent. Was that scary for you, or did that just come natural in Eric's presence?
He made it easier. And part of that is because he did have a lot of experience with dating, and he's just got a lot of emotional intelligence. He's very easy to talk to. And we explored together. We're fellow journeyers. And it really, every step of the way has been full on. We married 5 years, January 7th or 27th. So we've got an anniversary coming up. We didn't know that the pandemic was right behind us. We were just ahead of this huge wave that was about to crash. So we married, we bought a house together, we both moved to Connecticut. And I remember thinking, we had this nice, big, lovely, historic Victorian home. I remember thinking, I wish we had more time together. I wish I'd met him earlier. Will we have time to watch all the movies that we both love? Will we have time to really decorate this house together the way we both want it? Will we have time to really make a family with my grown kids and Maddie and the age difference? Well, we were fortunate in that the time with the pandemic actually did serve us. We watched all those movies. We decorated the house together. My youngest son stayed with us for what was going to be 6 weeks, what ended up being 10 months. And it was fabulous. That's the son you know. Um, it was just magical. It was bonus time that I never expected to have. And
Mhm.
then Maddie stayed with us. My oldest son, daughter-in-law, and grandson as a baby came for a bit to get away from wildfire smoke in California. So the intention of creating a family together absolutely instantaneously manifested in our first year and a half together.
Yeah, this is what can be so miraculous when souls come together, that clearly the two of you came together with a shared mission, the work you do, a consciousness to support each other. And then all these bonuses are falling into place, and including the fact that you did move from California over to the East Coast. You've created a life together. Everything you're speaking to is so inspiring, and I know others will really love hearing it. I have one last question. Um, Eric sounds like a great guy. And one of the big hurdles for single women that are conscious and spiritual, one of the big beliefs is there aren't enough men out there, or conscious men out there. What would you say to a woman who is struggling with that belief or that thought or even that evidence in her dating so far?
I would say to really set yourself up for letting people know that you love and trust, that you are ready, that you really want to find this person. And you're going to make yourself easy to find. And you would like to find that person who is ready as well. So I think playing your network is a good first step. And then I think it's important to find that right balance of open-heartedness, kindness, vulnerability, and also, just being smart. It takes some of the risk away when you're meeting someone through a channel that you know and trust. I didn't really go through a lot of the online dating. I had a couple of lunches, and I really handled that. I connected with them on LinkedIn. I had a lunch. I handled it a little bit the way I would do a lunch meeting with someone I was meeting, or a business lunch meeting, just because that was my safety zone. But I wasn't remotely attracted to anyone that I met that way. So I also learned how to do the awkward thing of, you're really great. I wish you well. You know, not my favorite thing, but I was decisive. And I think that that's the takeaway, is just stay true to knowing that you will manifest the person who is right for you. Don't let yourself get pulled into a rabbit hole that is not in alignment and that's going to tie you up and keep you from being available for that person who's looking for you.
And that is so perfect. And it's just one. And there is one. And there's probably more than one. So, hey, this is more evidence that there are some incredible conscious men out there, and smart, loving, spiritual women are finding them and being found. And I'm just happy for you. I appreciate you taking some time today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this has been great.
And I'm happy for you and Gavin. You're
Thank
so inspiring. You're both electric. It's just lovely to know that we create this life we live one day at a time. And not only is it not too late, we are just getting started.
Oh, yeah, in our 50s and thriving in relationship, and we are just getting started. It brings out a youthfulness and a goofiness and a almost a teenage fun rejuvenation. So I love to see more and more couples coming together at this point in our lives. We're awake, we're willing to learn, and then we've got a buddy that we can play with along the journey. So yeah, thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Joy. Take care.